Hello, hello, late night with Chef fam. How are you guys? Thank you for tuning in to another one of our live videos. We have the pleasure of bringing on an awesome guest chef for you guys out of Vegas. Just give me a second while I get Chef in here. What have you have behind there, Chef? Not a bad backdrop. Beats my half-dead plant up there that I'm trying to rescue.
Yeah, it's adjacent to the our kitchen. So
Oh,
our show
there you
ki- our show kitchen here actually looks right out onto the indoor fields.
Wow. Well, it sounds like we have a lot to get into. So, without further ado, hello, Late Night with Chef fam. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am your host, Doug. Unfortunately, Truffle Boy is out doing some amazing things and cannot be with us tonight. But not to fear, we are going to have a great show, be able to talk to all of you guys, as well as gain some insight from Chef Gary. So, Chef Gary Francis Xavier Morte out of Las Vegas, founder of Honest Hospitality Team, as well as a little partnership with Masa Zul. We will get into that. But Chef Gary, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. As I kind of commented, I see that you are, at work in your chef uniform. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to speak with us and, gain some knowledge and some inspiration for the fam.
Yep. First bit of knowledge is when you own your own business, you're always at work,
There you go. It's 24/7 gig, huh?
one way or another. Yep.
So,
Um,
Chef, if you can kind of just bring us into your beginning culinary life, did it start at an early age? Did you have some familial influence? What was that like for, young Gary?
I grew up in Yonkers, New York. Um, Not a very prestigious culinary community there, but I think the certainly the most important parts of my life as a young adult were happening around the dinner table. My mom was a great cook, um, but my dad actually cooked all of our special occasions.
Okay.
Italian. He was uh, he was first generation, and so we were definitely a red sauce family from New York. Um,
I like it. So dad was kind of the big guns. When a special moment came, dad came in and throw it down.
yeah, and he didn't do too many things. You know, his repertoire wasn't very wide, but it was very good. Um, and We enjoyed it a lot. Still, my favorite things to cook are what he cooked for us when we were little kids. So
What are some of those kind of like, when you say that, what's that like one or two dishes that kind of stick out in your mind? You mentioned the Sunday gravy.
Sunday gravy, that's definitely number one. And then lasagna was always like Christmas kind of meal. That was kind of the big one. That's always what I wanted on my birthday and stuff like that. But he had it would take 2 days and he stewed it for a long time. And there's usually 3 different types of meats and sausages and stuff like that in there. So
Hmm.
really,
That's so, as you kind of said, it was, very familial in the beginning, celebrated a lot of really important moments around the dinner table. When did you kind of decide to make that move and you're like, I think I want to do this professionally?
I actually got into restaurants right as I was legally able to work. So, and I got a job actually as a busboy. At a restaurant called Cinder's Steakhouse, right on the edge of Yonkers in the Bronx. And my buddy got me a job there, and you could only get a job there if you knew somebody that worked there already. And it turned out to be owned and operated by a very interesting Italian family.
Mm, I see.
So I was immediately introduced to this romantic, kind of like very adult very cool restaurant atmosphere with these guys that, you know, they didn't go shopping. Like the shopping came to them. They sat at the bar and played Keno and smoked cigars all day, and people would come with suits on racks. And I didn't know what was going on at the time, and but I just thought that those guys were really cool. And
Like, oh, they got everything figured out.
yeah, and then it was a lot of fun. I was all of a sudden I was 15 years old. I was hanging out with 22-year-old bartenders and having drinks after work and stuff like that. So like, it's not the most romantic culinary inspiration, but as a kid, it was just so cool, right? And I was in the front of the house, is actually where I started. Now, as soon as I kind of started to learn a little bit more about enjoying food and the kind of vastness that it could have, I was definitely engaged. We showed up. I don't know if I don't know if you remember when the FBI raided Gotti Jr.'s house.
Okay.
And they found this list of like unpublished members, right?
Right.
Yeah, the next day our restaurant was closed.
I see.
I
Okay.
went from this family thrust out into the world. What do I do now? I started actually working at I think a Subway, and all my friends picked on me for being a sandwich artist.
That was definitely a change of pace. You have this like very romantic movie-like restaurant experience, and now it's, do you want turkey or roast beef?
Yep. Making tuna salad. So I definitely kicked around, over the years, many different types of operations at different calibers, in different places. And, long story short, up until, it was about 8 years later, I found myself, I was then working in upstate New York. I'd worked hard, and I found myself managing a restaurant that was like a Mediterranean. It was doing like 8 million a year. It was busy, and I was having a lot of fun. And I found that like I really enjoyed the leadership role of like guiding a team and the camaraderie involved with like working in a really busy restaurant. But I also realized that was kind of I didn't see a lot of other opportunity for myself. Like from there, I didn't know what was going to come of it, and I wasn't really getting any traction because I had no formal education of any kind. So,
And I think that's a really important point that you hit on there is, that transition, like you said, from, kind of cooking and going through the motions to that leadership and that chef position. The most important thing that I've seen and kind of learned as well is like, it's how to lead a team. It's how to talk to somebody. It's how to get somebody motivated to do the task. The act of cooking in and of itself is something that can be easily taught, but just like you kind of hinted at there, that leadership piece, being able to motivate and move people, you kind of found a love for that as well.
that, and then ultimately, culture creation, where you can, take the skills you've learned as an individual to inspire individuals and create a world in the workplace that's self-sustaining, where other people help you propel it forward. And that's kind of, my favorite now.
Yeah.
But at the time, so I realized I was kind of, hitting a wall professionally. Quit my job, saved up just enough money for my first tuition payment for the Culinary Institute of America, and just kind of launched my way there. Worked my way all the way through school. Did catering with a company in Woodstock, New York. That was a lot of fun. Certainly a lot of adventures. And then actually I had a really good experience there. And I had never been exposed to cooking at that level of details. I really latched onto the fundamentals of technique and made some good friends and mentors, and got involved competing with the ACF national team. Got to travel, cook for the Olympics. I was a master chef apprentice 4 times. and then ended up working there as a graduate fellowship. So I was up there for like 6 years or something like that.
Uh, So if I can kind of take you back, I mean, one, like, I would love to hear more about the ACF because I think that's something that's lost a lot of young culinarians nowadays. I don't think it's something that's preached as much. I know when I was graduating culinary school, it started to very much kind of phase out and it was talked about, but not necessarily in the way that it was in, the 80s and 70s. But, going back even further, you said that you were, managing this Mediterranean restaurant and you were doing well and like this leadership, and then you kind of decided that it was time to go to the CIA. What kind of made you make that leap? Because I know a lot of young culinarians, that's the big debate. Everyone talks about to go to culinary school or to not to go to culinary school. So what kind of pushed you in the I need to go?
I have probably 4 times in my professional career, I've kind of just decided to burn it all down and start over again. And it's tough to tell you exactly why. At each one of the different circumstances, and they were all very different, I literally woke up in the morning and just knew it was time for change. And I didn't know what the answers were. I didn't know how to get there, but I knew there was more. And I knew that if I committed to it, that I would get it. So it's interesting because I'm an extremely logical operator. Everything has to have reasons and rationale and process, right? Systematic consistency,
Right,
right?
right.
But there are
Like,
things in that but there are things in life that are just completely emotional decisions, right? And like deciding for grand scale change happens to be one of them. So I wasn't frustrated, I wasn't angry. I certainly have less jobs, for that reason. Particularly like, when you first start line cooking and the learning curve's real steep and the environments are real competitive. You don't always jive with everybody. It's pretty easy to be frustrated in the workplace sometimes. But all the big change, the real important ones haven't come from frustration. They've come from like a sense of knowing that I could do more. I just had to figure out how to get myself in a position to do it.
I like that, and I think it's important. The important point there is that you betted on yourself, right? And you knew that you were capable of more, and you were willing to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, or as you so lovingly put, burn it all down to see that growth within yourself. And I think that's really important for young chefs and young culinarians and anyone in the industry, because, like you said, it's very easy to kind of get in that rut of like a nice restaurant and you got your line cook position and you're going out drinking with your friends every night, and like it can get very comfortable very quickly. I've definitely been in those kitchens where it's like, oh, this is perfect, I'm prepped for 2 days, like, I don't have to worry about anything, I know what I'm doing every single day. But as you said, you were ready to kind of get out of that comfort, burn it all down, and push yourself into a different area. I think that's really commendable of you.
The Yeah, I mean, if it would have turned out poorly, it wouldn't have been a good idea. You just can't stop working at it till it's right.
Yeah.
Now I realize that that's a wonderful strategy, right? The At the time it was intuitive, like intuition. I think now, I mean, I went up and down the ladder like 4 times before I got uh, like a long career job that I ended up staying at for a long time. You know, um, Going back to jobs that I had graduated out of and doing them again with a higher level of understanding and expertise really developed a approach to work and respect for the people doing those jobs and what their employee experience is like. That has allowed me to be, I think, a really compassionate and sympathetic like owner of a
Yeah.
business, and like because you're really a shepherd, for your employees. Well, I mean, I like to think about myself that way. Not everybody probably does, but
I'll say, unfortunately, not every chef, has that outlook on the situation. But you're right. If you take care of your people, they will take care of you 10 times fold. And I think that, one, COVID has shown us that, but I think that there's definitely been a struggle with that throughout our industry for the last few years. So, I love that you talked about that.
The ultimately that you know uh, I went to school, got out of school, traveled with a mentor, um, was very much going in that like kind of like ACF national. I was working with a master chef, and then like one morning woke up and was just like, I think independent restaurants are the next move for me, and just like, but at a high level, right? And did literally, I packed everything in my Jeep and drove across country, and uh, started a job in a city where I didn't know anybody, and started all the way at the bottom again. Went from like a senior sous to like a back to commis. Wasn't there for a long time. I was working for Thomas Keller. I think at the time I felt like the food we were doing at the clubs, because I had moved to like work at this really elite club with a master chef, and at the time I felt like the food in restaurants was like sexier, right? Because you still have this idea that some food is better than other food, right?
Right.
Which I think dissipates as you know become more experienced and you eat more and you travel more and you realize that like it's not what you're cooking, it's how you're cooking it. And but at the time I thought there was something else out there for me. And I'd been on this track with this team of people and mentors for, at that point, probably going on like 7 years or something like that. And so to depart that was scary, but again, just felt like the right thing to do, so I did that. And then started in a whole new world of style and food and culture, and it was really beneficial. Um, and and the food was really good. The Was there with TK for a little over 3 years. Um, then went to go work with Andre Rochat, which is where I got like my first real like chef job after working with him for a few years at Andre's, and it was Michelin rated, and I was in my late 20s. And so that was really, where I thought I would be when I was 40, right?
Right. Right.
So obviously, and like an honor and a blessing as far as opportunities go, a lot of work. He ran his operations were old school, so you're open 6 nights a week, and you were there every night the restaurant was open.
Yep.
And
that station every night is.
And then that wasn't he was understanding. I did like I had an injury once, and he didn't like blink an eye, and it made everything okay. But like when things were normal, like the chef worked the meat station. He cooked every piece of meat, and that's how you knew it was good. You made all the sauces, you cooked every piece of meat, you expedited, and you were there for every moment of every service. And that taught me a lot about good food. I think Andre still produced the tastiest food of anybody that I ever worked for as a chef. Best sauces by far and away. But and then so from there it was interesting because I hit like a career thing that at a young age I thought would be like the end, right? Like
right.
I'm in the back of a fancy restaurant.
Like you've reached the peak. What now? Yeah.
And then we had an amazing team. Some of those people I still work with now. We had a really killer team. So something unique happened, which was over time we learned what program maturation was and developing a food and beverage program within an outlet, and we maximized. We couldn't do more with what we had. Like the food was what it was, the client base was what it was, the amount of business we could do was what it was, and then I just had another one of those moments where it was like, well, this isn't the end,
Right.
So start looking to try to understand what the future looks like. More violent lifestyle changes. I took a job with the Mina Group, doing corporate multi-unit management. And that was also kind of like I took a sous role for them, even though I, but in a very different job that I wasn't an expert at. So there we got to learn a whole new skill set of corporate management, reporting structures, and then I think a lot of what I had learned to do to make myself successful and then ultimately a kitchen successful, I got to apply on a grand scheme with a whole lot of restaurants. And Michael he's an artist, and he's an emotional being, and we were good yin and yang, because operationally, like for me, if I can't type it out, if we can't create an SOP or a system, if it's not trainable, it's not real. So
Right. Get it on the paper. I want to see it written down.
and it's number one rule is, if when you learn to master good writing, whether it's recipes or standard operating procedures or a culture document, a quote to inspire people, whatever it is, but when you learn to master writing, you can now communicate with as many people as can see that writing. So now, I mean, with the original example I used is as many pieces of paper as you could print, right? So like that's how many people you can manage. So without it, you can manage as many people as can hear the sound of your voice. But as soon as you learn to master writing, you could master as many people as can read your writing. So infinite growth. The that was cool. We grew up, first like entry level, hands-on, opening restaurants, helping the chefs growing into a leadership role where I was coaching them and developing them. And then the last 2 years I was with the company, I was with them almost 10 years. The last 2 years I was with them, we created a department called Culture and Standards for the company. And we screened and hired all of the leadership team members. We had a front and back of the house team. We did it together. So we did the culture and skill set screenings, and then we put people in the right kind of like buckets for which type of restaurant and area and stuff like that, where they would be successful with their personality and skill sets. And we did a lot of work on formalizing career development tools for employees, evaluative processes for coaching and mentoring, and relationship development. So super cool, because I get to have this crazy opportunity to be interviewing so many chefs every week. Because when you're hiring for, at the time, nearly 40 restaurants, you're always hiring for multiple chef positions, multiple exec sous,
Right.
GM.
And you're basically, getting a very quick, analysis of this person and what restaurant they might fit in. And, does this chef jive with these sous? One of the very interesting points you kind of talked about is doing a, private restaurant and then going into overseeing the growth of many restaurants at once. For some of those chefs that are wanting to move into that multi-unit, universe, it seems, kind of in the stratosphere somewhere. What would you say are some of those tips to help looking at restaurants more on a macro level like that? Looking at 4 or 5 restaurants at a time, and sometimes our chefs are so focused on one kitchen at one time.
The biggest thing is taking your time. If it's easy to look at a company that has 12 restaurants and be like, man, they opened up 2 more this year. Why couldn't I open up 2 restaurants in 1 year? Like when I first went independent, my mindset was still in a zone of like, this is, what is accomplishable when you're working with a company like the Mina Group or something like that, where they have enormous cultural foundation and resources. I think the greatest mistake people can make is not understanding the personal investment it takes to build a culture of your own, and then the time it takes to develop the people around you to carry that torch for you to step away and do something else. So we hear about people growing too quickly. It's because that culture is not set. When they start stepping away and trying to do something else, it's not that it can't be done. And certain businesses and models and style of service maybe lend themselves to it more or a little easier, but it takes a big toll on you, and emotionally, mentally, and physically. And, I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I don't prescribe to a lot of the contemporary thoughts on work-life balance and stuff like that. I think it's a toxic paradigm we've created as far as from a conversation standpoint and mental well-being. But I think that the if you want to be good at it, if you want to enjoy it, right? Like if you want to just have a bunch of places, so you can be like, yeah, I got 3 restaurants. Like, by all means, go for the gold, right?
Right.
Get them all up, and you'll probably live through it, right? But if you really want to enjoy it, like understand that it's the people in those operations that are really special, and it's being great is satisfying. Failing multiple businesses at one time is not satisfying, right? So I would say, number one thing, be patient with yourself and with your team members, and grow something that can sustain itself. Maybe not indefinitely without you, but certainly for periods of time. That's people are still having a good time, right? But it's still enjoyable, and like now you're good. Like I think that there should be a 3-year cycle for an active business, like a company that's growing. I think you have a year of a new business. You got to be fully invested for a year. Then you've got operations where they're learning to operate without you, and in year 3 you should be developing and moving on to another place. And I kind of think that's as fast as you should go until you get other people that can do that for you. But that's just me. Um,
I think that's an excellent point. I think a lot of the, entrepreneurs that we have on the Late Night with Chef Fam would really appreciate that. I mean, that's a very, you seem, as you kind of have talked, as a very laid out, detailed person. I mean, that makes sense entirely. And like you said, having an operation that you believe in and that you've helped create, and not just like, all right, we threw up these 4 walls and there's a dining room and a kitchen. I got 3 of them.
yeah, and honestly, the you have to do. I'm so happy I got to work for a company that paid me a lot of money before I went independent. Not because I had the money, but so that I could learn how little difference it makes. Above a certain threshold of income, your life does not change. You generally have more debt, more issues, and more to worry about, right? Is it nice to have something to be able to invest in retirement, stuff like that? Absolutely. But you know, you got to qualify it from like emotionally, it doesn't change very much. So the understanding that that type of success is only going to bring you a certain type of happiness is really what can, I think, give you the emotional perspective that's going to allow you to actually grow a fun, healthy business that you really enjoy working in. That I think needs to get talked about a lot more, rather than being impressed by growth. Growth isn't impressive. Growth means you somehow created a brand or something and attracted people and they gave you money and you got the things going, but that's not success, right? Success is
Right.
like doing a good
Sustainability.
job. Yeah,
Yeah.
creating something, a good place for people to work, and looking at the lens of your business and like how you approach it in hospitality for your employees. The we're not just here to take care of other people. We should be taking care of each other. You know, not just our guests who pay us. But uh, you know,
We
I,
had We had a great question from one of our viewers tuning in. I think it was Truffle Boy himself, actually. But you were doing all these interviews for the Mina Group, and someone asked, "What are some of those qualities when you're interviewing all these chefs that kind of help them stand out? If someone's going into an interview, what are like a couple things that they can really do to maybe set themselves apart, especially in the times we find ourselves now?"
um, well, we came up with a really cool interview process. And I will talk about that for a second because I've never heard anybody describe it the same way, and I like sharing. But I created an interview, like a set. It was a questionnaire, and now we do it in my current company. We record it, so we have one person call and do the interview. They record it all, and then other people can watch it. Right. So the person only has to do number one. So we save everybody some time and energy. 2, the questions are not designed for pass fail. We start with simple, basic personality ones and then basic skill sets. And we continue on into advanced management philosophies and business administration on a really high level. So we're not pass failing you. We're seeing how far you get in the quiz, right? So how far you can confidently and genuinely answer questions identifies where you should be going as a professional. It's not like, are you hireable or not? It's understanding, like, are we doing ourselves and this person a favor? When you overhire people or give somebody a job they're not ready for, you're not doing them a favor. Like if
Oh,
anything,
do it.
the, uh, it's just like, you know, trying to do too many businesses at one time, taking a job that you're not prepared for. There's a difference between taking a leap and like saying like, I'm 80% of the way there, I can finish 20%. Like, sure. But sometimes people just have not been exposed to the skill sets they need, and you can survive it, but you're not going to enjoy it. Right. So
It's
we
not going to
found,
be simple.
yeah, it's not going to be a good time. It's going to be bad for everybody. So, in our industry, this interesting thing happened is so I was interviewing people constantly. So not only did we develop this interesting interview process, but I incidentally performed a multi-year study on the mindset of hospitality managers across America. And that really is what created Honest Hospitality. The company was a desire to solve the issues that everybody had. In the MENA group, we were focused. It was, I don't know, 3,000 employees or something like that. It was a lot, but wonderful experience. Love all those guys. But it
Yeah.
was a very specific place in the market, right? Like high-end hotels, high-end restaurants, high-end guests. Those people have everything. There was a lot of people outside of that needed more, that would be more available and receptive and appreciative of support. So that's why I created the consulting branch of what we do now, was to provide on-demand support for business owners and chefs who, maybe you can't afford a culinary director or a vice president of culinary operations with 25 years experience, but you can afford an afternoon with them,
Right.
and
Right.
that could change everything for you.
Yeah.
And
45-minute conversation. There's a lot here.
the it's a big world and a very complicated topic, right? Like, food and beverage is rough. It's organics everywhere you look. The product, the people, the guests, they're moving targets. And as far as like a business to run, a business model, it's really hard. Uh, so I realized when I started working in the corporate field that I like working for the people of the industry a little bit more than the guests. No offense to all the guests out there, but that's where my motivation came from.
Yeah.
That's where my motivation came from. So I loved the fact that my job was making chefs, executive chefs, and their teams more successful, like providing them with support. Opening restaurants where at the end of it, like, everybody who did it was great friends rather than stressed out. Where it was actually like fun and successful, checked all the boxes, and went home feeling like really proud about what we were doing. Not because we got a 5-star Yelp, but because the actual sous chef who was hanging on for dear life made it through the process, learned to be more patient, developed some skills, and is now successful and having a good time. That for me is the ultimate gratification. So going independent was certainly scary, particularly when you're leaving such a good job. It's like, man, you got almost nowhere to go but down, right? How are you gonna be better than that? Have more resources or better quality of life and stuff like that. So that was really probably the scariest thing I've ever done. But it worked out great, and I definitely ended up doing a lot of that. The other change I wanted to make was I really wanted my culinary skill sets to make people healthier. I think luxury dining is about opulence, and there's joy and you know, and being soigné, right?
Yep.
There's a sense of, worth for, working with rare ingredients, and it's special, right? But I think there's something more special we can do with food, and that's make people live longer and feel better.
That's
Yeah,
sometimes definitely get lost when there's a ton of butter and cream in every dish.
I mean, I slayed foie gras. Like, don't get me wrong, man. I was shoving foie gras into people as fast as I could, but the steaks and and there's nothing wrong with doing any of that. But I wanted to find a way to 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 be more than that, right? Because once you've done something for a few years, like, you should burn it down and do something different. Like,
Right?
life's short. So
If you hear nothing else from this entire episode, I want you to know, burn it down and start something else. If you're getting that comfort, it's time to go.
yeah, the learning curve should be your indicator. When it's steep and scary, you're in the right place. As soon as it levels out, time to go. The
Yeah.
But I wanted to make people healthier, so I wanted to open a juice. I also wanted to do a juice business because when I started like cold pressed juicing, I felt really good, and I'm like, I want everybody to feel this good. The consulting was too busy. We never really got around to it. Now we have a cool cold pressed juice program here. I'm definitely making people healthier with the food. I never anticipated it would be professional athletes. It's just the way that kind of manifested.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the goals I set out to do at that period of change, going from VP Amina Group to independent business owner, I've hit them. I'm doing it. Right? We've created a lot of good jobs for people. We have 30 full-time employees here.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah. Having happy employees is the best. And
Yep.
they're not all, but I mean, when they are happy, it's the best thing ever.
The
But
full time.
yeah, we got a couple full-time jobs. But so it's, I think, something for me that probably slowed me down a little bit more than it should have, you know, from in retrospect, was trying to be a perfectionist. Um, Looking back, I was around good people who gave me good advice about stuff, but, I was a little hard-headed. Um, I worked for a chef that told me, he's like, sometimes you got to punt it. He's like, you get close and you just you kick the ball downfield, man. You just start running after it, That's really good advice. 80% and send it. That's good advice. If you wait till you're perfect at something, you probably cheated yourselves out of a few years of actually getting it done. And nothing is going to work out the way you think it's going to. So don't try to be perfect. As hard as it is for a perfectionist to say, it's true. It will slow you down. Get real close and then just work your ass off.
Like you said, we're in a business of organics. There's a whole lot of variables. So, we definitely try and sit there and, oh, we can control this, we can control that, we can control this. But, if the fish guy is late, the fish guy is late. No one caused the accident, no one caused the flat tire or, the drunken night before, whatever it was. Like you said, there's a lot of variables. So, that's great advice. I think a lot of us are perfectionists at heart and definitely put a lot on ourselves to try and keep up the perfection, but there's some things that are just not in your control.
Subconsciously, you'll also use it as a defense mechanism to keep from putting yourself in a place where you can say, there is absolutely no reason that I do not try to do this today. So something we do, an exercise I do with myself regularly, and each and every one of our employees. Like, my personal goal this year is 5-year plans. Have a 5-year plan, because you want to paint yourself into a corner with aggressive goals, right? And it should be scary, and but once you acknowledge, it's easy to say I can't do something in the next 6 months, right? Somebody's like, buy a home, open a business, make a baby, whatever it is. You can't be like, well, I can't get that all done in the next 6 months, right? So it's easy to push it back, and then years go by.
Right.
When you can you get this done? Could you get these 10 really important things done in 5 years? The answer is like, yeah, I could get it done in 5 years. Like 5 years is plenty of time, right?
Yep.
First three go by, and then you've got 24 months, and it's like,
Here we
uh,
go. Strap
well,
on.
well, then you realize you can do it in 24 months, right? So, I think that's when, you know, life starts to get real interesting, is when you realize like the primary barrier for your success is you, and you can get a hell of a lot more done than you think you can, particularly when you have no choice. So, you burn the house down behind you, you can't crawl back into bed. You gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. That the house is gone. You got to find a new house.
Yeah. The
I love technology. And you kind of hit on it a little bit, but one of the things I did want to talk about with Honest Hospitality, obviously, as being you guys are the main provider of food and beverage for the Raiders, that whole flavor versus nutrition, is that kind of an inner turmoil battle? How do you kind of deal with that? You want to throw the butter in, but you reach for the coconut oil, or how's that kind of play out?
Great question. It is a very so our food program we do here it's four meal periods a day plus meal prep, and we change the menu. We change menu items approximately every day and a half. So it's rapidly changing all the meal periods, and
Yeah.
and a really wide range of customers. We've got young guys straight out of college that come from not the most complex culinary backgrounds. We've got players that have, survived in the NFL for, 8 to 10 years, and they're very focused on nutrition and clean eating and what needs to happen. We've got executives, we've got office people. So we do have different menu programming for the different aspects of the building. The building's 373,000 square feet. They're on a busy day. There's about 300 or more employees in it. And we can do, 500-600 meals worth of food, maybe up to like 7, depending if you're counting like players who eat like 3 people. So when you get into now serving all those different needs, you end up having large, diverse menus that range from clean, simple, identifiable, to comfort, maybe borderline, and then
Right.
I need a hug. Give me an ice cream sundae. When people eat with
Yeah.
their, the people that work in this building supporting the football, like the football administration team, the admin has like they still have their upper level guys are here always. The like the business side, marketing, they have what you would expect from like a kind of fairly typical 9 to 5. Media people, their jobs are crazy, but the people that support the football players, like equipment, stuff like that, these guys work crazy hours, right? And in season, it's 7-day week jobs. They're here before and after the players, and the players are here a lot. So when you have a captive audience, you have to bring a really diverse product list to the table to keep them engaged. And then you've got to have a wide variety, understanding what everybody likes. And you've got to understand how to message it all. And like right now, we'll have up to like 20 different iPads just in the dining area, just to tell everybody what the food is that's being served right now. Keeping the production lists straight. We have 7 managers here. One of the chefs is, it's almost his full-time job to just buy food, right? Keep the right amount of product for the new menus, upcoming menus in the right place. People focused on just employee development. We actually create.
You have a lot of people counting on you, one for the nutrition aspect, but also, if they're there, 16, 17 hours a day, you're very much kind of that comfort to them as well. Like, okay, we can count on Honest Hospitality to give us a good meal. Like, God, these hours suck, but at least we know, like, our fresh juices are going to be on point, or, whatever those meals are going to be there, and they're also going to provide the people the nutrition they need to keep working these, insane amount of hours. So, like you said, food is not just delicious, flavorful stuff. There's substance to it as well.
And in sports, you can measure its effectiveness. Um,
Yeah, very easily. That's true.
in leisure dining, you have customer feedback. Did I make you happy for this meal? When you get into like fast casual, people are more utility eating, so it's a different type of feedback, different goals and purposes. Value plays a bigger role. Here, the performance nutrition component is very serious, and you got to be there for people. They need to have nutritional confidence, and also intrigue at the same time. So there's days of the week where we'll try new things, and then there's like you get in like leading up to a game, we'll run like the same play, like we have tonight where it's lobsters and tomahawks and like you name it, shellfish stations and all that stuff. And then like the morning of the game is a very consistent, like a really wide breadth of simple foods because everybody eats the same thing before the game. Like,
Right.
I don't mean that the players eat the same thing. I mean that each individual player shows up and is like, I want to eat the same thing before every game because this is what sits right with me, and I know I need to eat this many hours in front of the game, and it's got to be these three things. I do the same thing every time. It makes me feel good, and I don't want to worry about it.
I don't know if we have any Office fans out there, but you saying that story gave me the visual of Michael Scott eating the entire plate of chicken Alfredo before running the 5K. And you definitely don't want a player having that moment where he's just got a pit sitting in his stomach. So, yeah, 100%. It's like a very much a ritual for them.
It's cool. I mean, we work with a full-time director of nutrition from the Raiders, who's great and has taught us a tremendous amount. And he has two assistants, so we're always talking about it. But I think one of the unique perspectives that we have here is that participation is more important than specifics. So if you can get, so we serve primarily whole foods, and it's almost all scratch cooking. We buy some breads and stuff like that we can't do here, but it's better for a player to be here and have our comfort food than it is to go get fast food.
Yeah.
Right. So if it was too clean, participation would be low. Right. It'd be only for on certain days. But having a really like comprehensive offering that's going to have something for everybody all the time, that we get our participation rates way up. Now they're always eating whole foods, right? Like, is it chicken parmesan? Yes. Is it the best one you can be eating? Absolutely. Is it better than an Arby's or something like that? Like, yes. So getting participation up, and it's through the roof. We destroyed our budgets our first year because we were expecting like 70, and we were like over 90 percentile.
Oh my goodness. That is extraordinary. Wow.
The food's good. We have great chefs. The team's very diligent and talented. But so participation. So it's not as like granular in accounting macros and about calories really at all, because when they're when you have this, not for the players, when you have that much activity, actually keeping them fueled is more important than like weight loss, right? Calories is a conversation about weight loss. The performance nutrition is about having the right ingredients in the right places at the right time. Every time your body's looking for protein to heal, there needs to be protein there. That's a much more important conversation than like how many calories did you eat today.
Right. Exactly.
Most of the guys are not worried about like losing weight, and usually around halfway through the season, you're actually more concerned about keeping it on.
Yeah, no, I would say I'm sure the workouts are strenuous and, very frequent. And so I would say they're much more worried about, you're running around fucking hitting people, 250, 300-pound guys. I want to be one of the 250, 300-pound guys for sure. You don't want to be out there, 200, 180 pounds getting smacked around.
It's totally a safety issue. The
Yeah,
It's interesting to learn about the different body types and how much weight they need to have on them and stuff like that. I wasn't really in the sports before this, so for me, it's been a pretty steep learning curve the last few years. Like, not just learning about how to feed them, but understanding the sporting world.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, there we
and
go. Back to that, that learning curve is where it needs to be for the growth.
that's exactly right.
Well, Chef, it has been an absolute pleasure kind of going back and forth with you for this last hour. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to kind of share with the Late Night with Chef fam and just a wealth of knowledge. I mean, so many different business aspects here, but also from a cultural, and like you said, cultural creation is so huge as a young chef trying to do your own thing. And then just all the different avenues that you can take it. It sounds like you've definitely been around the block as far as being in different restaurants and food and beverage atmospheres. And just, wow, thank you so much for sharing all this with us and the Late Night with Chef fam. Guys, if you do not know who Chef Gary Lamorte is, Chef, do you mind sharing your, Instagram handles with our Late Night with Chef fam so they can kind of come check you out and show you some love?
Sure. Gary _ FX _ Lamorte. I think across all channels, Gary FX Lamorte, I'll be there. Honest Hospitality Team is the one of our business components. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions about anything we talked about, or feel free to shoot me a message. I love hearing myself talk.
Well, there you go. There you have it. And as well as a cute new English bulldog as well. And that's always a fan favorite to check. So,
Lots of puppy content. If you like, yeah, he's an old English bulldog, so they're a little more athletic, a little bigger than English.
okay.
Quite a handful.
There you go. There you go. Job of the pup. All right. Thank you so much, Chef. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. We have more amazing things headed up for you guys later this year, and we're so excited for 2022. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Have a great night and stay safe out there. Thank you, Chef.
Have a nice night.
Go Raiders.